This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Hello and welcome to War Horses, the only college equestrian podcast that got to meet Riley Kachow this weekend. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Let's talk about some college equestrian. Well, it was a fun weekend, and yeah, we had a lot of action, so let's jump right into some meet recaps. First up, Baylor at Georgia. Now with this one, the predictions had it going 12-6 for Georgia, and I think it was going to be Georgia getting every event by a couple of points. Let's see what really happened. Well, the Bulldogs, they came out hot. They took fences 4-1, and then they swept horsemanship 5-0. And then that gave them 9-1 halftime lead in the second half. They had a 3-1 win in flat, and with reining, they got another 5-0 sweep. That made their final total a 17-3 victory for the Bulldogs. Now, we were all wondering if Georgia was going to see a drop-off in production after losing so many of those starters from last season, but I guess not. They pretty much obliterated Baylor, particularly in that first half. Now, it was not a great start for Baylor, but this was on a Friday, so they had to turn right around and get ready for a meet the next day, which was going to be against an opponent probably just as tough when they went to Auburn. But we'll get to that here in a second. But we still got some meets here for Friday, so let's look at Oklahoma State at TCU. Now, this was the meet of the week for me. I said, hey, this is going to be very important just to see if, what's going on over there in the Big 12. Well, the stat said that Oklahoma State was going to win this 12-4, okay? And let's see what really happened. In the first half, TCU, they came out swinging. They took fences 4-1. They followed that up with a 3-2 win in horsemanship, and that made the halftime lead 6-3 in favor of the Frogs. So they were well in control. Oklahoma State's good enough they might come back, but again, this was on the road for them, so let's see what happened. In the flat, TCU, they won that one 4-1, and then Oklahoma State did get a 4-1 win in reining. So they did well in that event, just too little too late there. When it's all added up, TCU won the meet 12-8. And so instead of getting, kind of trounced in their home ring like the stats suggested, they not only won, but they looked good doing it. So yeah, good job, TCU. And for Oklahoma State, you know what? Losing on the road like this, sure, the stats thought they'd do a little bit better, but, this wasn't a bad result. I mean, they still kept it close, 4 points. That's 2 rides. If they had gone the other way, then, it would have been a tie, and then who knows what would happen in the tiebreaker. But that's not how it went down. Let's see. Our next meet is Minnesota Crookston versus UT Martin. And last week, in the predictions, I said that UT Martin was probably going to win this one 12-6. They did this one over 2 days. That's right. They had half of the meets events on Friday, and then they did the other half on Saturday. So, yeah, Minnesota Crookston looked good. They took flat 3-1, and then UT Martin took reining 3-1, so that meant everything was all knotted up 4-4. Now, this was a 4-on-4 meet, so that's why the scores are a little bit lower there. And so, yeah, you felt like, okay, Minnesota Crookston, they are in this. Now, the next day, the Skyhawks, they kind of got it going. They dominated fences. They won that one 4-0 in win a sweep, and then horsemanship went 2-2. That made the final score UT Martin 10, Minnesota Crookston 6. So very close here. That's a 4-point margin of victory, and just like we talked about with TCU and Oklahoma State, that's only 2 rides. If they had flipped the other way and the points had gone the other way, then yeah, you would have had a tie here, and who knows what would have happened in a tiebreaker situation. Yeah, much closer than what the stats suggested, so good job to the Golden Eagles. But again, good job to UT Martin. They got a win, and it was over a conference foe, so good job everybody. All right, moving right along. Here we are on Saturday now, UT Martin at South Dakota State. Now, the prediction here for the stats was a 12-5 win for UT Martin. Let's see what really happened. Now, the Jackrabbits, the home team, they won fences 3-2, and then they followed that up with a 3-1 win on the flat. Now, UT Martin did take horsemanship 3-2, but South Dakota State sealed it all with a 2-1 win in reining, making the final score South Dakota State 10, UT Martin 7. Now, again, UT Martin was the favorite here based on the stats, but this was a road meet for them. And, you know what, on paper they might still be stronger, but riding on the road is tough because the other team knows their horses, you don't. And, yeah, South Dakota State got the win. Big win for them. One more meet there up in South Dakota. Minnesota Crookston at South Dakota State. I said this one in the stats, in the predictions, it was going to be 12-8 South Dakota State. Let's see what really happened. South Dakota State took fences 4-1. They won flat 4-1. And then they had a 3-2 win in horsemanship and then a 5-0 sweep in reining. That made the final score South Dakota State 16, Minnesota Crookston 4. So here again, the Jackrabbits looked very sharp, especially in reining where they shut out Minnesota Crookston. And yeah, they got 2 wins at their home meet, which is ideal. That's what you want. For Minnesota Crookston, a little bit tougher loss. They didn't do as well here as they did against UT Martin. But again, they were going up against the home team, and the home team has those advantages. Everybody can still take something away from this weekend. All right, now we're coming down south. Baylor, I mentioned them earlier. They had just gotten kind of blown out by Georgia. Now they got to go over to Auburn. The stats suggested this was going to be a 15-4 Auburn win. Let's see what really happened. Now this meet was a beautiful day. Opened up with flat and raining going on in the first half. Now right from the start, Auburn showed that they were going to be in control of this. Tigers won flat 4-1, and meanwhile over in the Western Ring, they went 3-1 in raining. So that made the halftime score 7-2, and everything was looking good for Auburn. Next up in the second half, we had fences and horsemanship. Now, these typically are Auburn's 2 best events, so not much chance that Baylor was going to come back on them, and they didn't. In fences, the Tigers got the dirty sweep. They won that one 4-0 with a tie there, and that performance essentially clinched the whole meet for Auburn before the Western rides even wrapped up. But horsemanship was going on, and it was an even bigger win for Auburn. They got the complete sweep, 5-0 over there. That made the final score Auburn 16, Baylor 2. So just a dominant win for Auburn, even more than the stats predicted. Now I'll say in the prediction, we did have Auburn sweeping fences. They almost did that. Same with horsemanship. So those 2 ended up being accurate. What really was eye-opening was just how well Auburn did in the flat and reining. That really blew the meet open. The stats thought that it was going to go 2-2 in flat. So getting a 4-1 win over in the flat, that really took away Baylor's best shot at points right at the start of the meet, and it was just all downhill from there. So yeah, Auburn met or exceeded expectations pretty much everywhere, which is nice if you're an Auburn fan, especially considering that Georgia did about the same thing to Baylor the day before. So you could take from this, Auburn is once again one of the top teams in the country and pretty much on par with Georgia, at least from the early returns here. Now for Baylor, this was a tough back-to-back stretch. Opening against Georgia and Auburn, I've got these 2 teams as number 2 and number 1 in the country in my rankings, so pretty much every other team in the nation would have taken 2 losses if they had opened their season the way that Baylor did. So just a tough scheduling break for the Bears there. Now I will also say that in addition to Riley Kachow, that I spoke to other Baylor folks, and everybody seemed to be enjoying their visit to the Plains. At least it didn't have anything to do with the scoring that wasn't going on. But yeah, it was beautiful weather, just a perfect morning to watch some equestrian, and yeah, everybody was real nice and friendly, and it was just a great day to go and enjoy some good riding. Now that's all of our meets. Now let's see what those meets and how they impacted where everybody stands when we take a look at the official Auburn Elvis College Equestrian Rankings. Now, this week we did not have any single discipline action, so I'm just going to go through the dual discipline rankings, I'll go through both of them, but only the dual discipline rankings had any changes. Now, one other thing to keep in mind, I'm going to go do all 10 of the top 10, but the top 8 are really the ones that are the most important, because those are the ones who would get a spot in the national championship tournament if it were held today. So that's what you want to do. If you're number 9, number 10, boy, you got some work to do. You got to get in that top 8. All right, but here's a team that doesn't have to do a lot of work right now, and that team is number 1, Auburn.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
The Tigers are going to stay right where they are after rolling over Baylor. Auburn looks as strong as ever, and, they're ready for another big season, I think. Number 2 is Georgia. Georgia stays at number 2 after their big win over Baylor. They've got some, a matchup going on the road to Delaware State. But yeah, they haven't missed a beat despite turning over so much of their roster. Number 3 is Texas A&M. The Aggies haven't ridden yet. They got their first meet coming up on the road at UC Davis. So we're finally going to get a chance to see what this year's lineup looks like. Number 4, South Carolina. The Gamecocks were off this weekend, but they're continuing to trend upwards after that impressive win over SMU in Week 1. Speaking of which, number 5 is SMU. The Mustangs are going to head to Stillwater this week. They're going to face Oklahoma State in what should be another good early season test for them. Number 6 is Fresno State. Now, Fresno State has their first test of the year coming up at home against South Dakota State. The numbers suggest that they look pretty good this year, but we won't know until they actually ride. Number 7 is TCU. They're coming up off that upset home win over Oklahoma State. And, you know what? They're going to turn right around and host Baylor now. So hopefully they'll get more of the same of what they just had. Number 8 is Oklahoma State. The Cowgirls are going to slide down just a little bit after that loss to TCU, but they'll try to bounce back because they've got SMU coming to their place this weekend. Number 9 is UC Davis. The Aggies have a big opportunity this weekend. They're hosting the other Aggies of Texas A&M, and they're also going to host South Dakota State. And number 10 is South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits are off to a great start. They got wins over UT Martin and Minnesota Crookston, and now they've got this tough road trip ahead with Fresno State and UC Davis, but for right now, they're number 10. So those are all the dual discipline teams. Here are the single discipline teams. There were no single discipline meets, so nothing changes from last week, so I'm just going to go through these real quick. Number 1 is Sweetbriar. Number 2 is Lynchburg. Number 3 is Dartmouth. Number 4 is College of Charleston. Number 5, Bridgewater. Number 6, Swanee. Number 7, Sacred Heart. Number 8, Berry College. And number 9, Centenary.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
All right, now with the rankings out of the way, let's take a look at some meet previews. All right, we got a bunch of meets coming up this weekend. Starting on Thursday, October 9th, we've got Baylor at TCU. So it looks like TCU has found its footing after that home win over Oklahoma State, and they look like a team on the rise. Baylor, on the other hand, seems to be going the opposite direction. I used to be concerned about TCU's depth, but now I am generally worried about Baylor and their ability to stay competitive, at least on the road. So let's take a look at the projections from the stats. In fences, the most likely outcome is a 2-2 draw. Now the flat is expected to go 3-2 for TCU. Baylor has been underperforming in the jump and seat events lately, so they'll just need to limit their mistakes and hope they can stay with the Frogs. And horsemanship projects even stronger to be 4-1 for the Frogs. Reining rounds out the meets, and that's going to be another 3-2 TCU prediction. So adding all that up, we would expect to see a 12-7 victory for TCU. We're going to keep moving right along. We're going to take a look at Friday. We've got some single discipline meets going on. Lynchburg at Swanee. Now, both these teams are good. Lynchburg's probably a little bit better, but this is at Swanee, so that's going to even things out. In fences, the stats say that Lynchburg should come out on top 3-2, and in flat, it also points to a 3-2 Lynchburg victory. So that would be a 6-4 Lynchburg win over Swanee if that holds true. Another single discipline action is Centenary versus Georgia. Now this one is a jump and seat only, and on paper it looks pretty lopsided. The projection has it 8-2 over Centenary, with the Bulldogs expected to dominate both events 4-1. But sometimes you see these larger programs, what they'll do is they'll take it a little bit easier on the small schools, and so they use this as an opportunity to get some riders who aren't typically starters to go up against these single discipline teams, and that way it gets them more experience, and they're not really worried about losing too much. So we may see that, but again, Georgia's breaking in so many new riders this year, they may just go ahead and go with the full lineup. Either way, the only real impact it's going to have is whether or not they win by a lot or by even more than a lot. So, Georgia's going to win. It's just by how much. But there is a dual meet that Georgia will be involved in, and that is right after that, Georgia versus Delaware State. Now, this will be fun. I mean, I always like to see the big programs go on the road to the smaller places, and that's what we've got here. In fences, the stats say that Georgia should win this one 3-1. On the flat, it says that Georgia should win that one 3-2. In horsemanship, the numbers actually favor Delaware State. They should get a 2-1 win there. And in reining, the most common outcome is a 2-2 draw. If all that holds true, it would be a very tight Georgia victory 10-8. We'll see how that goes, but at least that's what the stats say would happen. We got another meet here, South Dakota State at Fresno State. Now, we talked about this in the rankings a little bit. We said this is going to be a Jackrabbits big test. They've got to go on the road now. And Fresno State, last season they just missed out on the national championship tournament, but they return a lot of the riders, so they've got a lot of experience going into this one. Here's how the stats break down for both teams. In fences, Fresno State has the edge, the most common scoreline being a 3-1 Bulldog win. In the flat, the numbers are even heavier towards Fresno State, a near sweep at 4-0. In horsemanship, this will probably be the closest of the day. Fresno State winning 3-2, and over in reining, that one, the most likely outcome is a 4-0 Fresno State dirty sweep. So if you add all that up, the stats project that Fresno State would win 13-4 over South Dakota State. So we'll see what happens. Now we have another one going on out in California, Texas A&M versus UC Davis. And this is the Aggie versus Aggie matchup, so no matter what happens, the Aggies are going to win. And I just want to point out that when I was putting all the matchups together, the AI actually made that joke. So dad jokes are apparently part of AI now. Anyway, both Aggies are going to make their season debut in this meet, and here's how things should go according to the stats. In fences, the computers have the Lone Star Aggies slightly ahead, and the most common result is a 2-1 Texas A&M win, so a lot of ties there. Over in the flat, A&M is expected to flex its depth and win strong with 4-1. In horsemanship, this one should be pretty close. The numbers favor A&M 3-2, and in reining, it's another tight projection with Texas A&M edging out UC Davis 3-2. Add that up, and you got a final score of 12-6 in favor of Texas A&M. Now, we feel like UC Davis should be able to snag 2 points, but Texas A&M looks really good this year, so I think they're going to win this one on the road. Okay, now we've got what I would consider to be the meet of the week, SMU at Oklahoma State. The winner of this meet always seems to shoot right up the rankings, at least the NCEA rankings, so we're going to see if that remains true again after this week. The Mustangs come in, they're trying to bounce back after that narrow loss at South Carolina. Oklahoma State is trying to get some redemption after getting upset on the road at TCU last week. Both these teams got a lot of motivation, they got something to prove. Let's see how the stats break down. In fences, SMU has the advantage. The most common result is a 3-1 Mustang win. Over on the flat, same story, 3-1 SMU win. In horsemanship, SMU once again has an edge, 3-1. And in reining, the models project that Oklahoma State will win that one 4-1. So if you add all that up, that makes the final score SMU 9, Oklahoma 7. So a lot of ties in this. Okay, we're going to move over to Saturday now. I told you we got a lot of meets coming up. Centenary at Delaware State. This one is a single discipline meet. On paper, it could be kind of close. Let's see how it breaks down. In fences, the most likely outcome is a 2-2 draw. And on flat, Delaware State gets the edge, projected to win 2-1. If that all holds true, Delaware State would win 4-3 over Centenary. South Dakota State at UC Davis. This is our final meet of the weekend. In the stats, fences is projected to be a 5-0 sweep for UC Davis. On the flat, UC Davis would keep rolling, projected as a 4-1 win there. On the western side, in horsemanship, UC Davis is favored 3-2. And in reining, it would be another 3-2 UC Davis win. Add all that up, and it looks like it could be a big victory for UC Davis, 15-4 over South Dakota State. So we're getting further into the season. The picture of things is starting to come a little clearer into focus. I'll say I'm no longer worried about TCU. I was worried about them in the preseason with all that talent they lost, but they look sharp and just good over that home win over Oklahoma State. But I am worried about Baylor now. The Bears had a very rough trip going out against Georgia and Auburn, and now they're about to go on the road again. It's just, this is just a tough way to start your season. They probably shouldn't have started it this way, but there you go. And we still got some teams that haven't ridden yet, so we don't know exactly what we're going to see out of them. But again, the more meets we get, the more information we get about these teams, and so we're well into the season now. Well, that's all for this episode. I am your host, Auburn Elvis. Thank you very much for listening, and war horses.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.